Serendipity. First of all, what does it mean to you? Like, what is it like? What does it bring you? Like when you find like these experiences?
I guess for that experience, it was just like connecting so many dots, you know, that, you know, as an adopted person, you have all these sort of disconnected, frayed parts of your life that you just don't have answers to.
Right.
You know, and so this woman, Jane Lip, she was one of those constant threads throughout this whole thing of uncertainty, you know, and so I guess for that, the serendipitous part of that was having her come back into
like a full circle kind of a situation.
Coming back into my life and also coming back into my parents' life.
Right.
Because she was a big part of that whole process and was a much bigger part of my parents' life than my life.
Right.
You know?
Right. So back in the orphanage, right? Like, so if I remember you telling me this, she was very specific about placing you with your parents.
Yeah. Her superpower, her gift was knowing these babies that were given up. She had this ability to know their personalities when they were just infants, you know, and to be able to then interview these potential adoptive parents and understand their stories and their personalities and their needs and their strengths and weaknesses, you know, as well as the other people in their families and, you know, siblings and all those things. I mean, that was truly her superpower, was to be able to figure out the best possible, like, life situation for these babies and the parents. Yeah. Based on
very insightful,
who she knew these babies were going to become based on their personalities and really their energies and like this whole, she just knew.
So how old were you when you were put up for adoption?
So I was given up at birth.
At birth, okay.
Yeah. So like a day after, and then I was in the orphanage for a month, and then was adopted.
And this was up in Washington?
Yeah, Spokane.
Okay. And so you, I think you're okay. You remind me. You knew you were adopted from early on.
Never had a day I didn't know.
Never had a day you didn't know.
Like my parents were just like, that's just the way it was.
Right.
Like, it was never like a thing where they sat you down and went, oh, and by the way.
So
no,
right.
Totally normalized. Like we just always knew.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're in this area of Washington, Spokane area, and you're raised there, right? And you're waiting tables.
Yeah. Well, and so to back up a little bit.
Okay.
So my parents had always talked to us about the orphanage, St. Anne's, you know, and Jane Lip, the woman who ran the adoption process. And we had gone, I think I was like 9, and we had some sort of like reunion where we went back to the orphanage, and there were all these kids, and it was kind of weird, but you know, I mean, it was.
Well, yeah, what was that about?
It was more important for like all the parents. You know, the kids were like, I don't know what's going on. I'm 9 years old, but anyway, so they tried to have some, you know, sort of a community.
Gotcha.
But I wasn't aware of it, so it was more for the parents. So Jane, the point being, Jane was still in touch with my parents for a while, and then, you know, as we got older and grew up, like the connection kind of dropped off, and you know, it just, you know, everybody went their ways, and St. Anne's, the orphanage, it wasn't kind of cool to have orphanages anymore. That's not the way adoptions went. They went to open adoptions. And so the whole adoption process changed. You didn't have that kind of orphanage that you had where we were adopted out of, where the nuns like to care of you and actually in an orphanage. Like, they don't do that anymore, unless there's like special cases in different. I mean, there are orphanages, but not that kind of orphanage.
Right.
So
right.
that got sort of disbanded or whatever happened to it, and so that all kind of fell by the wayside. And so anyway, grew up. Always heard these amazing stories about Jane Lipp. She wrote this beautiful poem about my sister, Kate the Skate, and which was like, Kate the Skate will never wait, like about her personality. And it was just spot on, because my sister was just like so intense and so like, rah! You know, it was all about her not waiting for a partner, but she needed to slow down and wait for people to catch up with her if she wanted relationships. Totally like, nailed it, you know?
Yeah.
We have the poem to this day. So she's just an amazing woman. So placed both my sister and I with my parents.
Biological sister?
No.
No. Okay, right. That's right.
We're both different. And that's another amazing thing about Jane was she told my parents after they adopted me, oh, it'll be a couple years, you know, until we find, because, you know, my parents said, yeah, we for sure want a second baby. And Jane was like, oh, it'll be a couple years. 12 months later, she calls my parents and was like, I got the perfect kid. She's totally different than Aimee, and she's perfect for you guys. And they'll balance each other really well. So anyway, that's Jane. Like, she was just so amazing. And so then years later, I mean, you know, had kind of, the distance had grown, you know, I mean, everybody went their own ways and had their lives. And I was like, I don't know, 24 or 25, I don't know how old I was, but working at a restaurant on the South Hill in college and doing my thing. And this woman comes in with a date, older lady, you know, with a man, and it turns out they were on a date and whatever, and we got to talking more and more, and, you know, just as things went on, and and then she started telling me a little bit more about her life, and it turns out, you know, she talked about being the director of this orphanage and brought up St. Anne's, and I was like, I was adopted from there. She was like, oh my God, are you Aimee? You know, and she nailed it just right out the gate.
Right, like of all the kids that were adopted out of St. Anne's,
thousands
that
of kids.
Whenever she nailed it. She just nailed, like, it's not like she went through a list of, are you this, are you that, are you this person?
She nailed it.
She just said, oh my God, are you Aimee?
Yeah, she totally nailed it. And so then we just had singing. So we were both like, of course, sobbing in this restaurant.
Right.
You know, and it's just like, you're Jane Lipp, you know? And I had never met her.
So whenever she said, are you Aimee?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
You knew immediately.
And then you knew immediately that this was Jane Lipp, that this was that now all the dots were connected.
Yeah, all of it. You know, this magical woman I've like heard of my whole life.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was an incredible.
And from that.
Right, so from that, and then we had our like emotional meltdown in the restaurant, which was, you know, I'm like, sorry, all these other tables, you're just gonna forgive me for a sec.
Right.
And then I was able to reconnect her with my parents. And then they had 10 years of a really amazing relationship before she died.
Right.
And so, and she was in a position in her life where she was older and needed some support and needed their friendship, and like this whole thing was just so great.
So perfectly planned out in a different realm, not planned out in this realm, but planned out in some realm, that the meeting of you and the reconnecting with them, she got, like, not only did your parents get what they needed and you got what you needed, but then Jane got what she needed.
In the end, it was about Jane.
In the end, it was about Jane.
Yeah. Which was really beautiful. And, you know, she was super appreciative. My parents were so happy. I wasn't even really in the picture at that point. You know, I was off living my life and I went and did my things and whatever, but they were able to, you know, have this really great friendship. until the end of her life.
Yeah.
You know, that was super fulfilling for everybody, you know.
Right. She's done so much amazing work for everyone else. And then it came back around that again, full circle
For
to
her.
you and knowing, and then for you guys to be a part of her support.
And hopefully it made her life richer at the end, you know, because
Yeah.
my parents were totally there for her.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because she was such an intuitive, amazing woman.
Well, and then the fact that your mom was a nun and your dad was a monk, like they were already in this kind of like higher vibration of generative love and kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to be the conduit that connected her to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just any parent.
Right.
It was people who were fitting for the task, you know, of just
incredible all the way around.
Yeah, that is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, and they had 10 years of relationship before Jane died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really, really awesome. And I would not have been placed with my parents. My sister would not have been placed with my parents had it not been for her.
Right.
Because she knew. She just knew.
And so, like, when you think about and reflect on that story and, like, how, like, all of those little things that fell into place to eventually support Jane.
Right.
And also for your parents to have this gratitude, like, be able to express such gratitude. And then, so how does that feel for you, like, when you think about all of that?
I mean, she was the facilitator for my family.
Yeah.
You know, of, like, putting us all together like a puzzle, like the perfect puzzle, you know? And so, you know, I mean, growing up, always just hearing about these, like, great things about Jane Lip and how amazing she was and intuitive and spiritual and, like, this whole thing, and knowing that she is really why my family came together in the way it did, you know? It's just, so special. And then for her to come together at, you know, in the last years of her life.
Right.
You know.
Because she came and sat at a table that you were waiting on.
Randomly.
You, like, so random. Had no idea.
Yeah.
And through the fact that you were open and communicative and she was open and communicative, that you guys were able to put those puzzle pieces together to, like, understand that, oh my God, this is you and this is you. And
and she and my parents had, like, so much fun, you know, in her later years. Like, she was such a great woman.
Yeah.
So funny. It's such a personality. Oh my God. Yeah.
And so, like, knowing that story and, like, even just retelling it now, like, what do you feel? Oh,
just joy.
Joy.
You know?
Yeah.
That whole thing was able to come to fruition.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of story happens, and, you know, good, life-fulfilling, and, you know, things like that can work out. I mean, there's just so much dark, horrible news going on lately, you know. There's just, like, so life-affirming to know that actually there are good stories happening. You know, and let's focus on those, you know, and so for me, even retelling, it's just like, oh yeah, there's really great things that have happened in life, and, like, there is a higher power active in this whole process, and really great things are and still happening, you know.
I mean, it's magical. It's like literally magical. It's like, you can't make this crap up. Like, it's literally magical. Like, and so it I don't know about you, but for me, it's like, don't sweat the small stuff, because things will occur as they are meant to occur.
Yeah.
And it can be this amazing possibility and potential that unfolds without even any effort in helping it to unfold.
Yeah. Just a great story.
Yeah. And it is a great story. Yeah.
All these people's lives, you know, kind of, like, came back around, you know, full circle, and everyone was so happy and so much better, and so many lives were affected positively by this person, by Jane Lip.
without any effort.
Yeah.
It's effortless.
Yeah.
And I think
who she was.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right. And you know, that effortlessness of like how it came back to that full circle. And I think that's like the thing that I try to, I don't know, that I really reflect on is the effortlessness of it. Like we don't have to try so much. You just gotta allow, and it just kind of comes back, and it creates this magical moment, this magical serendipity that benefits all. Yeah, awesome.
It was so good.
Well, thank you so much for sharing again. Thank you, and thank you for letting me video it.
Of course.